Hello, this video is about EMPs, particularly ones created by nuclear bombs, their effects at different altitudes and yields, and common misconceptions that are associated with them. In our indie film, The Days Ahead, we portray a nuclear attack on the UK, and the nukes we show are surface bursts or low altitude bursts, which are in visible proximity to our characters. We show the mains power is being knocked out, and our characters hide in small rooms. In one of the scenes, our characters are in an office and they talk about why the power is out, yet their LED torch still works.
Nuclear bombs create an EMP. It's like a electronic pulse that would stop a siren.
But this torch works.
Well, I don't know then. This hasn't happened before, not in this century. I don't know what to say.
In another scene, we've got a mum who's looking at photos and messages on her phone. She even gives her daughter an 80s retro gaming console because there's no internet.
There's still no internet.
No, there won't be. You'll have to look at offline things from now on.
Nothing's offline.
Okay then. Well, there you go.
But aside from there being no internet, why are these devices working at all?
Oh my god.
Well, the dad here does have their devices in an EMP bag.
No service.
Me neither.
Let's bring in a diagram. So on this image, you can see that there are 3 nuclear bombs indicated. Hiroshima, down at the bottom, which is 600 meters from the ground. The Tsar bomber, which is 4 kilometers altitude, which was the biggest nuclear bomb test ever carried out. And at the very top, we've got the Starfish Prime nuclear bomb test, which was at 400 kilometers altitude, and that was a 1.4 megaton nuclear bomb. So starting at the bottom, detonating a nuclear device close to the ground, it prioritizes blast and heat effects rather than EMP effects. There is still an EMP, but it's much less widespread and only affects very locally because the Earth blocks and absorbs the electromagnetic waves. Looking at this another way, if you're close enough to the central blast zone of a surface burst or near surface burst nuclear detonation, you've probably got bigger problems than an EMP to worry about. The next one up is the Tsar bomber, and even though it was a huge yield, 50 megaton, and it was high up at 4 kilometers, it still wasn't designed and didn't create a widespread destructive EMP. In order to create that widespread destructive EMP, a nuclear detonation has to happen above 40 kilometers in the stratosphere, up to about 400 kilometers, where they perform the Starfish Prime test. But why? So an EMP needs a high altitude to work effectively because it allows the gamma rays from a nuclear detonation to interact with the upper atmosphere, creating a much larger and more widespread electromagnetic pulse. And that quote I've just read is straight from AI, cross-reference with Wikipedia and the US website Domestic Preparedness, which is based on the US Department of Defense test data. How does an EMP damage and knock out the mains electric grid then? Well, it induces dangerously high currents and voltage surges in their windings, overwhelming the equipment. So a large-scale EMP, like a high-altitude nuclear one, can induce currents across long conductors like power lines, which then surges into the transformer and fries it, basically, causes it to fail. The Starfish Prime test was detonated in an area approximately above Hawaii, and apparently it knocked out 300 streetlights in Hawaii, and some microwave signals were affected, and some telecommunication systems were affected, as well as satellites. And it also created an aurora, which was visible all around the world. So, anybody thinking of detonating such a high altitude nuclear bomb has to think twice, surely, because it could be basically an own goal. It will be likely to damage all of your own satellite systems. So it seems like a very, very stupid idea. So coming back to address the main misconception with EMPs, and that's that any EMP will cause every single electronic system to cease functioning. Well, based on the US Department of Defense and Congressional EMP Commission's EMP test databases, small self-contained systems such as cars, handheld radios, and unconnected portable generators tend not to be affected by EMPs. If there is an effect on these systems, it's often temporary upset rather than component burnout. So it's really mains grid that is particularly vulnerable, and anything connected to the mains grid. So all of the power that's required to power cell phone towers and basically everything else we have in our life is vulnerable. But that could be why then your LED torch might still work and your little battery radio might still work. Yeah. And then, of course, there is EMP shielding, such as putting small devices in an EMP bag, or containing larger systems in EMP cages or boxes. And of course, lots of military equipment already has EMP protection. Designing EMP protection for mains voltage transformers on the grid, I'm sure, will be a huge and costly endeavor, but possibly that could help to protect those systems as well, if anybody was willing to pay for it. Our micro budget anthology film, The Days Ahead, is basically about emergency preparedness, and it's available now on Amazon and Tubi if you'd like to go and check it out. Thanks for watching.